The House Financial Services Committee held its first hearing on stablecoins in 2023, and time to check in to hear more about it with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk State of Crypto newsletter, which you should get your kids if you haven't saved up for college. So welcome, Nick.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good to hear from you. So, it's typical kind of Washington nonsense. One side praises, the other side pans. In this case, Republicans are praising, Democrats not so thrilled. So what did the great Congresswoman Maxine Waters have to say about it?
Hey, yeah, so this is, we're talking about the hearing yesterday, and specifically the lawmakers were referring to the draft stablecoin bill that was unveiled over the weekend. We've talked about this a couple times now. The hearing to discuss the provisions and to talk about stablecoin legislation more broadly was yesterday. And while the subcommittee chairperson, Representative French Hill, and the overall committee chairman, Patrick McHenry, both said, this is a starting point and there is a need for federal regulation. Representative Maxine Waters, who is the ranking member of the overall committee, said that, the bill doesn't really reflect current thinking. It's kind of outdated in that sense. It's what was worked on last year, but since then things have happened like FTX. And so she said we need to start from scratch. She did later on in the committee or in the hearing say that, there is a need to work quickly. The committee does need to work quickly on this new bill or on, however they update the bill. So it's not that, she's denigrating crypto itself necessarily. It's just that the bill as presented is, in her view, out of date.
So is this still a bipartisan bill?
Right now, I think the impression that we're getting is no, it's not. One of the other things that Congresswoman Waters said is the McHenry's team was working on their own bill. So we'll see, if Congressman McHenry has an updated bill to unveil later on. But at the moment, it seems like any negotiations are, one-sided.
And did you get the feeling that the Democrats blindsided the Republicans, or is it the other way around? I'm not sure, because the Republicans shouldn't have called the hearing if they knew that the Democrats, considerations were not being taken seriously by them. They would have known that Democrats would come out in that hearing and kind of, hit back.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was really blindsided by, what was said and what was happening. I think it was just a case of, the lawmakers wanted to make sure that they had their own views presented for the record. So, we heard from the majority that this is a starting point. This is a bill. There has to be some federal stablecoin legislation. And we heard questions about that through the hearing. The Democrats, the minority party right now, wanted to make it clear that they have concerns about the industry and about the sector. And so, while there is a bill, it needs to be updated. And we saw that reflected in the questions as well.
So what's the next steps now? What do you think is going to happen next year?
Well, that's a good question, right? We talked about this yesterday. The really big question is there any support in the Senate for this? And, the answer is, not really. Yeah. So what happens next is we have to see if and how the House will reshape this bill, and whether in the process of that they'll be able to secure support from Senators Tim Scott and Sherrod Brown, who are respectively the ranking member and chair of the Senate Banking Committee. And if that happens, then if it's bipartisan, if it has support from the various heads of the parties and the committees, then it'll probably go through. But it's going to be a long process from here to there.
Nick, very briefly, because we are out of time, one of the congresspersons said lawmakers should question whether stablecoins are even needed. Did anyone in that hearing illustrate why the U.S. needs stablecoins, and that too as the first real oversight in terms of crypto legislation priorities?
Well, one of the questions, I think, is I forget which lawmaker it was. I believe it might have been Representative Sean Casten. He was asking about the promise of stablecoins versus what they provide right now, right? A lot of the speakers said stablecoins have potential, that they will, be able to support all these things in the future, but for some of the lawmakers, that's not good enough. The question is, what are they doing now? Why are they worth the time and effort and the support right now? And that's a bit of a murkier question to answer.
Well, thanks so much for that, Nick. I'm sure we'll get the answer soon from somewhere or the other. That was CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day.